Hello, today I'm going to be reading a Julia Donaldson book to you. It's called The Smartest Giant in Town. As last week, I'm going to read a lot of the story to start with so that you can enjoy it, and then there'll be some questions on post-it notes for us to have a look at together. I've also circled words that end in suffixes and the Year 2 Common Exception words, so you can particularly look at those and think about how they are read. Okay, so let's get started. The smartest giant in town. George was a giant, the scruffiest giant in town. He always wore the same pair of old brown sandals and the same old patched up gown. I wish I wasn't the scruffiest giant in town, he said sadly. There's lots to see on that page, isn't there? Look how big George is compared to everybody else. Ooh, what's going on there? One day, George noticed a new shop. It was full of smart clothes. So he bought a smart shirt, a smart pair of trousers, a smart belt, a smart stripy tie, some smart socks with diamonds up the sides, and a pair of smart, shiny shoes. Now I'm the smartest giant in town, he said proudly. George left his old clothes behind in the shop. He was about to go home when he heard a sound. On the pavement stood a giraffe who was sniffing sadly. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my neck," said the giraffe. "It's so very long and so very cold. I wish I had a long, warm scarf." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his stripy tie. "Didn't match my socks anyway," he said, as he wound it round and round the giraffe's neck. It made a wonderful scarf. "Thank you," said the giraffe. As George strode towards home, he sang to himself. "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a river. On a boat stood a goat who was bleating loudly. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sail," said the goat. "It blew away in a storm. I wish I had a strong new sail for my boat." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his new white shirt. "It kept coming untucked anyway," he said, as he tied it to the mast of the goat's boat. It made a magnificent sail. "Thank you," said the goat. Oh, come to our first question here. Let's take it off the page so you can see the words and the pictures. George strode on, singing to himself. "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on the boat as the sail for a goat. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." And your question is, what kind of giant do you think George is? And when you get a question like that, you need to think very carefully about what George says, what he does, and think very carefully about his personality. What kind of man does that make him? So far in the book, often when you get asked a question, good to flick back and He's mostly smiling, isn't he? The only time he wasn't smiling was when he felt a little bit scruffy at the beginning. So he's quite kind of cheerful, isn't he? And the first thing that happens is he takes his brand new tie off and gives it to the giraffe as a scarf. So if somebody gives somebody something, what kind of personality is that? You might say kind or caring, might you? He sings, so he's a happy giant as well, isn't he? And then he gives away his shirt to make a sail for the goat's boat. So again, he's unselfish, kind, caring, thoughtful is another good word, isn't it? Lots of different ways to describe the giant. George came to a tiny, ruined house. Beside the house stood a white mouse with lots of baby mice. They were all squeaking. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's our house," squeaked the mother mouse. "It burned down. Now we have nowhere to live. I wish we had a nice new house." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off one of his shiny shoes. "It was giving me blisters anyway," he said, as the mouse and her baby scrambled inside. The shoe made a perfect home for them. "Thank you," they squeaked. Your next question, what does scrambled mean? Now think about where you've heard the word scrambled. You might say scrambled egg. Now this is nothing to do with eggs, is it? Let's have a look what it says. Her baby's scrambled inside. So to make a scrambled egg, what do you have to do? You have to mix it up, don't you? So it's not kind of a neat word, is it? Scramble, if you don't know what it means that you kind of find it quite difficult to do something. It's not an easy, neat way. You have to really hoist yourself up, or it might be scrambling over rocks that are a bit tricky, scrambling up a hill that's a bit tricky, and they have to scramble over the top of the shoe to get in. Quite a difficult word that, isn't it? But now you know. George had to hop along the road now because he's only got one shoe, but he didn't mind. And of course, as he hopped, he sang to himself. "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." And the question is, why do you think the villagers have their hands over their ears? So it doesn't say anything in the writing about that. You have to look for the clues. So they're stood with their hands over their ears, and there's George. And what's George doing? He's singing. Right, what do you think? Have a think. Why have they got their hands over their ears? You might have said because they don't like George's singing. But we don't really know whether his singing is good or not, do we? What do we know about George compared to the villagers? He's so much bigger than them, isn't he? So imagine you are that small and somebody that tall is singing. It will be such a loud noise. It will be a deafening noise. And that is why the villagers put their hands over their ears. George came to a campsite. Beside a tent stood a fox who was crying. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sleeping bag," said the fox. "I dropped it in a puddle. I wish I had a warm, dry sleeping bag." Cheer up, said George, and he took off one of his socks with diamonds up the sides. I was tickling my toes anyway, he said as the fox snuggled into it. It made a very fine sleeping bag. Thank you, said the fox. Right, I'd like you to have a go now. George hopped on, singing to himself. Right, can you sing this with me? My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town. That was great singing. Reading and singing at the same time. You are so clever this morning. Now the question here is George still smart? He says he's the smartest giant in town. What do you think? Not really, is he? He's given away his tie, his shirt, his sock and his shoe. And actually he's beginning to look a little bit scruffy again, isn't he? George came to a big, squelchy bog. Beside the bog stood a dog who was howling. What's the matter? Asked George. It's this bog, said the dog. I need to get across, but I keep getting stuck in the mud. I wish there was a safe, dry path. Why isn't the dog happy? Doesn't look very happy, does he? Quite an easy question, that. Have a think about it. Look at the whole page. Why is the dog not happy? Because he keeps getting stuck in the mud, doesn't he? That's why he's not happy. Right. I'm going to read this and then I'd like you to read it after me. Cheer up, said George, and he took off his smart new belt. It was squashing my tummy anyway, he said, as he laid it down over the bog. It made an excellent path. Thank you, said the dog. Have a look at this before you read it. Remember to read it with expression in your voice. So when the dog talks, there's an exclamation mark, isn't there? Because he's so grateful. Thank you. And there's an exclamation mark when George talks because he wants the dog to cheer up. Cheer up. You've got ing there, which makes an ing sound, squashing, and then the common exception word, any. Even though you say at the beginning, there is a letter A there, not a letter E. And then the common exception word, path, as well. Right, you have a go at reading it now, starting with cheer up. Super reading. We can read this together. It's the song again. The wind started to blow, but George didn't mind. He hopped on, singing to himself. Look, his trousers are falling down because he's given his belt to the dog. You ready? My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on the boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. My belt held the dog who was crossing the bog. But, do you remember the next line? And look at me, I'm the smartest giant in town. Let's see if he does say that. My trousers are falling down. I'm the coldest giant in town. You read that now. Good. Suddenly George felt sad and shivery and not at all smart. He stood on one foot and thought, I'll have to go back to the shop and buy some more clothes, he decided. He turned round and hopped all the way back to the shop. What might happen now? It's a prediction. And we'll all have different predictions, won't we? You have a think about it. What might happen now? Oh, he's sad. When he got there, it was closed. Oh, little tear coming down his face. Oh no, cried George. He sank down onto the doorstep and a tear ran down his nose. He felt as sad as all the animals he had met on his way home. Then out of the corner of his eye, he saw a bag with something familiar poking out of the top. George took a closer look. My gown, he yelled. My dear old gown and sandals. George put them on. They felt wonderfully comfortable. I'm the cosiest giant in town. He cried and he danced back home along the road. You ever go reading that? Outside his front door, all the animals he had helped stood. They were carrying an enormous present. Come on, George, they said. Open it. George untied the ribbon. Inside was a beautiful gold paper crown and a card. Look inside the card, George, said the animals. George put the crown on his head and opened the card. And inside it said, your tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. Your shirt's on the boat is a sail for a goat. Your shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of your socks is a bed for a fox. Your belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. So here is a very fine crown to go with the sandals and gown of the kindest giants in town. What a fabulous book. And the last question is one just for you. Would you recommend this book to anyone? Who and why?